Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Off the Cuff. I know it's been a while since my last video, and don't really have much to say. I've plenty I wanted to talk about, never got around to it. Been quite busy with all sorts. And a lot of that was around UKIP, at least until start of December, really. A lot has happened. A lot has happened since my last video. I think it was just before the NEC elections began campaigning. Actually, they didn't really campaign, but you know what I mean. So what I thought I would do is just do a brief little record of everything that's happened in UKIP. Summarize all the stuff that's led up to the point that we're at now. Everything that's happened recently since my last video, but also things that happened long before, things I've talked about in other videos as well. Now, I would say, for me personally, but also for this situation, it started last year in 2018, just near the end of the year. There was a lot of events going on with Gerard Batten and Tommy Robinson. Gerard Batten appeared with him at the Brexit Betrayal March, which I attended. And there was a lot of hubbub going on. A lot of UKIP members were very annoyed. I just joined UKIP recently at this point, and basically it all sort of simmered down when the NEC said to the members that they would ask the members to wait until Brexit was out the way, wait until after March, and then we could discuss whether or not Tommy Robinson would be invited to join UKIP, be allowed to join UKIP, whether they would waive the constitutional restriction that disallows members of prescribed parties from joining UKIP. So the members simmered down, they decided to put it off. In between then and March, we saw Brexit not go through. But at the same time, UKIP lost a lot of members with the founding of the Brexit Party. The reasons for the founding of the Brexit Party are claimed to have been because of Tommy Robinson, but there's evidence that that's just not true. Nigel Farage had spoken about establishing a new party and not going back to UKIP since the start of 2018, long before Gerard Batten even became leader. And the Brexit Party itself wasn't even founded by Nigel Farage, really, was it? Now, either way, it doesn't matter. UKIP had been slandered and tarred and feathered and so on. And so the members decided, and as most British people would, that they're going to avoid being labelled, being tarred, and they're going to go to a party that is clean, a new start, fresh, clean break, and they're going to join that party. So they joined the Brexit Party despite the fact that, there's really no future for it and there's no wider vision. And it's really just a one-man party, as we keep saying. Nonetheless, yes, we lost lots of members. We had the MEP elections that went on. I was quite impressed with Carl Benjamin's campaigning. It is unfortunate to see that it didn't pay off. I think that the media smears had far too much effect, and Carl Benjamin overestimated how successful his campaigning in town centres would have been. It is a good plan, but I think it requires more than one event in one location. It needs multiple events in one location, but I imagine he didn't have the time for that. So yes, UKIP lost a lot of party members. I saw a lot of members leaving branches for various reasons. The two common reasons I saw was that some members felt that UKIP had associated with Tommy Robinson that hadn't helped, or that they'd brought in members like Carl Benjamin that didn't help. So UKIP lost a lot of the longer standing members who'd been around for a long time. They felt like UKIP had gone in a new direction. So think about that, right, carefully, because that would mean that most of the remaining members are the ones who've stuck around because they think that there's still the party that they want to stick with. But there's also the members who've stuck around because the direction the party appears to be going is the one they wanted to go in, that they like Batten's direction. So then the leadership elections came about. Initially, Gerard Batten. Now, the reason for the leadership election is because Batten obviously stood down as he'd promised to, and because he'd lost his seat, and he felt that he couldn't really just stay as leader if he's lost his seat. He didn't intend to stand again. It's been said that basically what happened was people filled out the forms and pled with him for for ages for him to stand for leadership. And so I think he decided to. We've heard mixed stories from Piers Walkup and so on that he apparently was umming and ahhing up to the last day. I don't know. I only know what Batten has said and what Piers Walkup has said and what her members have said. I'm inclined to trust Batten a little more based on stuff I've heard Piers Walkup say and stuff I've heard Batten say. I think Batten has a chip on his shoulder, but he is more honest. Straight talking, which is why people like him. So, needless to say, as we all know, the leadership election went back and forth, and eventually Batten was prevented from standing, as he's apparently not in good standing, as he brought the party into disrepute. The rules and constitution are very unclear as to what the being in good standing and bad standing are, what they mean, and how they work. And when you are no longer in bad standing, as we've been saying, when do you go back into good standing? How long does it take? Where's the list kept? Who keeps the list? It's just too vague, too ridiculously vague. Nonetheless, Richard Brain got the support of Batten, and it said many times that he would make him his deputy leader. And ultimately, Brain won with 54% of the vote. He got a massive majority. Now, around this time, Damien Heads was suspended for stuff he was saying on Kipper Stream. If you've not heard of Kipper Stream, it was initially a youth focus, but eventually widened its focus to all sorts of audiences. But Damien Heads started this streaming channel on YouTube, and it was quite successful. He interviewed lots of various members of UKIP, including two of the leadership candidates. And so, he did quite well. I have appeared on a few of their shows, but until recently. Anyway, so Damien Heads was suspended from the party using emergency powers by the chairman. I do not think that the reasons for his suspension were just. I do not think that they constituted an emergency. And I think that these powers were used disproportionately. But apparently, the NEC didn't feel the same way, and the emergency panel established decided to put that towards a disciplinary hearing. In this time, we had the party conference and many other events. But ultimately, it was... Damien was, I think this was had an impact on his involvement in UKIP, being suspended without warning. Because the thing about a normal suspension is a normal suspension goes through to a disciplinary committee. You're warned about it. You're given time to present your case, and if you lose, then yes, you are suspended. But he was suspended without warning. Anyway. So, in addition to that, Richard Brain was prevented from appointing Gerard Batten as his deputy leader for the same reasons as Batten being prevented from going into the leadership election, is that Gerard Batten was supposedly not in good standing. It's worth noting that many of the rules that were cited by the NEC and chairman about Gerard Batten's not being in bad standing would actually indicate that Gerard Batten should be suspended. If what they were saying was correct, and all the rules that they were citing about what Gerard Batten had done, if their side of the story, their version of the events was correct, Gerard Batten should have been suspended. I don't obviously agree that he should have been suspended, and obviously the NEC did not want to have a massive backlash against them. So, yes, Gerard Batten was prevented from standing. So the NEC were really kind of acting out of fear, but just not too much. And really, I don't think that that's how they should be behaving. This is just my opinion, of course. But in addition to Gerard Batten being prevented from being Brain's deputy leader, Liz Phillips was also prevented from becoming the chairman, which is what Richard Brain wanted. Now, Liz Phillips was prevented because apparently she had broken GDPR rules and used the party database to contact members for her own means, which is against the party constitution. Truth be told, she did do this. However, she was told to do so by a superior. And I believe the NEC said, oh, well, she's a big girl, so she can defend her own actions. But I don't fully agree with that. Yes, I do agree. Yes, it's her own actions, but it's not like someone telling you to go break the law. It's not like someone saying, that you should go punch that guy, and then if you go punch that guy, obviously you get done for assault. If your boss tells you, okay, actually, I'll get an example here. Now, I do web development. I've mentioned this before many times, more than I should. And if I'm making a website and the client asks me not to follow certain GDPR rules, would I, as the developer, be held to account for that? Or would the client be responsible for that? Because Liz Phillips might have used it, but she answered someone. She had someone telling her what to do. And if that person told her to use a database, I would say that person should at least be punished as well. If you're going to punish her and not the person in charge of her, that's kind of ridiculous. Because she got suspended eventually. So, yes, it's utterly ridiculous. But, not to be deterred, they put forward another position, another person for chairman, which was Jeff Armstrong. And the NEC said that they needed to have an interview with Jeff Armstrong, that they weren't sure about his suitability for the position, despite his long and very experienced CV and record. And later on, Jeff Armstrong was made returning officer in the NEC elections. So what that says to the suitability of Jeff Armstrong to be the party chairman, I am not so sure that they had a case there, really. Now, before this time, a group called Integrity was created. Now, initially when I first heard about Integrity, it was through a Kipper Central article where they put in a sentence there that later after speaking to various members of Integrity, I found out is a bit, was a miscommunication really. It says that they were a Momentum, similar to Momentum, which is a Labour activist group. Now, later speaking to them, it seems more like Integrity was meant to be a group that wanted to hold the NEC accountable and that wanted to put forward Gerard Batten's vision of UKIP. If you look at their policies, pretty much all of them are already UKIP policies, except for two of their policies. The one was about, if I remember correctly, this is all from the top of my head, one was about Carl Benjamin making such members such as Carl Benjamin more forefront, which is not really UKIP policy. And the other was about bringing Tommy Robinson, inviting Tommy Robinson into UKIP. Now, the reason that they gave for wanting to invite Tommy Robinson into UKIP was because of 2018, the promise made in 2018 by the NEC that they would raise the question, that the question would be raised to the members about inviting Tommy Robinson into the party. So they actually have a just cause for wanting to raise it. And a lot of the members in the NEC were still the same as before from the previous NEC that made the promise. Now, I grilled Peter McElvenna on the Kipper stream. I asked him all the tough questions because I have a lot of problems with how Integrity go about growing their group and how they try to convince people to join them, and just the tactics that they've chosen to use. I knew from the start that they were going to be they were going to fail, but nonetheless, I still agree that the suspensions used, the emergency powers used, not just against Damien Hez, but then against Peter McElvenna and the other guy whose name has just slipped my head. But the two founders of Integrity, both of them should not have been suspended using the emergency powers. I know of their actions, and they were speaking out against the party publicly, which does break the rules. But they're not the only members who've done that, and there are ways to deal with that rather than suspending a member immediately. And I think that in that case, and in Damien Head's case, the chairman chose to use her powers to silence opponents. Perhaps the chairman was acting at the behest of the NEC, perhaps not. It's difficult to tell without seeing all the email communications, but obviously we're never going to see those really. But because of all this going on, and because of the way the NEC had prevented Richard Brain from appointing the people to his positions, and because of an expected low turnout, which ultimately was a low turnout, Brain boycotted the party conference, at which we had a lot of fun grilling the NEC. And there were a few things the NEC said that really revealed where their heads were at. One line I pulled from Marietta King, who said that they are trying to save UKIP, to save the UKIP that they joined, which would be the UKIP that only believes in Brexit and nothing else. The UKIP that should be dead at this point. Which is why they will very, very easily destroy UKIP, because they do not want to deal with the wider manifesto that brought in thousands of members, including myself. I do not care that much about Brexit. I want Brexit. I want to see it done. But I also care about other issues that are happening in the United Kingdom. There's a reason I want Brexit, and that is to achieve the further result after Brexit. And the UKIP that Gerard Batten shaped, the manifesto that was formed, is part of that reason that I joined UKIP. Now, on the side, all throughout this, despite claims about Richard Brain's association with Integrity, he was pleading with them to drop their Tommy Robinson clause from their policies, to drop it from their goals, because that was the main thing that not only put them in opposition to Richard Brain, because Richard Brain had said that the Tommy Robinson issue is not going to be raised, but it also put them in a very difficult situation, because at this time the NEC was looking to proscribe the entire Integrity and any members associated with them, and frankly using very, very loose language. And at this time I was seeing some discussions, some dialogue between various members of the NEC, and it became apparent to me that the NEC will believe just about anything as long as it suits their bias, much like many people. But the NEC were not willing to listen to evidence and were willing to act on conjecture, on false evidence. They were willing to act on without even any warning or trial or letting a person make their case. No, absolutely no fairness. And so that was ridiculous to me. Absolutely, absolutely ridiculous. Now, also around this time, I'm trying to do this chronologically, but honestly, I can't remember the order of events. So I've just jotted down a list of events in roughly the same order. But around this time, Damien Heads was unsuspended. He had his disciplinary hearing, and he apparently convinced them. I've heard two sides of that story, but I won't share them now. And ultimately, he actually managed to become chairman of YI. He won unopposed because some of the other candidates didn't manage to get in time. Soon after, he was removed as YI chair, partially because there was a massive crisis going on around this time, and Damien Heads was pretty much a one policy chairman. He wanted to get Tommy into the party, and he wanted YI to try and make that happen. This was never really going to work, to be honest, and I don't think Damien Heads should have been removed as YI chair, but nonetheless, it was a good thing for YI. But yeah, I don't think he I think he was unfairly removed, and I don't think that the way in which, because there was claims made that because he had been suspended, he didn't meet the criteria for how long he'd been a part of UKIP. But that brings into question whether or not the revocation of a previous suspension counts as being non-existent, or whether the disruption to your membership would count. Bit ridiculous. I think that should have been discussed rather than him just being removed. But ultimately, because of this, Damien Heads ended up leaving UKIP and joining the Conservatives. A move that we were kind of expecting. He had been drawing away from UKIP for some time, and frankly, I think that this could have all been avoided. Members such as Damien Heads could have been very amazing allies and contributors to UKIP if UKIP had made more effort to be fair. Because you can be punished, but if you're punished unfairly, you're not going to fight for that. Now, in addition, following all this, there were the NEC elections that started happening. So the NEC elections, we were looking forward to that. We had been promised 10 Batten Brigade candidates. These were candidates that had been deemed trustworthy by Gerard Batten. Gerard Batten and his candidates, he was actually one of the 10. They seemed to be doing fine, really. But some interesting things occurred around this time. So firstly, the vetting process was announced, what the vetting criteria was, and I noticed that the vetting criteria didn't match the Constitution. Furthermore, there was absolutely nowhere in the Constitution or the party rules that said that the vetting criteria set out in the Constitution could be changed. Nowhere does it say that. It said that the NEC could decide on the conduct of the election, which includes campaigning, and that includes the fees. That's the one thing that the NEC had control over, is who is the returning officer, and what are the fees for becoming a candidate. Nonetheless, this vetting criteria was used to deem certain candidates unsuitable. However, the returning officer that was appointed, Jeff Armstrong, mentioned earlier, he felt that the vetting criteria was not valid, and so he wanted to allow all but one candidate. There was one candidate that was removed that actually didn't meet the original constitutional criteria. And also around this time, there was an argument between Jeff Armstrong, Richard Brain, the NEC, the chairman, and it went a bit chaotic. As far as I know, around this time, the chairman was suspended by Richard Brain. The entire NEC was suspended by Richard Brain, and the party leader, Richard Brain, was suspended by the party chairman. I don't really know. It kind of got a bit crazy there. But also around this time, Richard Brain sent Mark Dent to the party HQ to try and regain control by preventing the party chairman from accessing an email, sending out an email from Jeff Armstrong with a list of the NEC candidates, and also with a note to gain evidence on any misdeeds that the party chairman had carried out. They managed to get into the HQ. And two sides of the story here are that they got in, they did their job, they did everything that was on that list, and they left. The NEC's version is more like they barged in, they were very aggressive, and they stole emails. But we'll see where this story gets interesting there, but we'll come back to that later. Soon after this, about the next day, after this email was sent out with a full list of NEC candidates, the reporting officer, Jeff Armstrong, was removed as reporting officer, and Jeff Armstrong also got suspended. Why I think the reasons for suspending him, I don't actually know. I don't know at this time, but I suspect if I'm to look at previous suspensions, that I wouldn't be too trusting of the reasons, especially given that Jeff Armstrong, in every instance that I saw him act, he was honourable and he was fair. Now, also around this time, Richard Brain claimed that he had sacked the chairman, Kirsten Harriott. And there was a whole back and forth about whether or not he could sack her because, she's not his employee. She was an employee to the party. There was an email leak in which Kirsten Harriott admitted that, in fact, that she did answer directly to the party leader, Richard Brain. That contractually. Whether or not this means he could fire her, sack her, is down to company law. And I've not really studied company law. I've focused more on the party constitution and party rules. But once this was done, once Jeff Armstrong had been removed, Kirsten Harriott ignored the supposed sacking. It was kind of unsure there. And Kirsten Harriott, the party chairman, decided to remove candidates from the list, from the NEC candidates list. The rules she used were Constitutional Rules 12-1, which does say that the chairman can remove candidates from the list. It doesn't mention that this list, as far as I'm concerned, until someone can point to otherwise, can say otherwise, that this removing of candidates, that the rule specifies that the list in question would be candidate lists for elections to public office, not internal elections. So as far as I'm concerned, the party chairman removed candidates from the NEC candidate list using irrelevant rules. She also used her emergency powers in question to remove and suspend some of them. Ultimately, 7 out of 10 of the Batten Brigade candidates were removed. The only ones not removed were Nicole Bushell. I'm actually forgetting some of the other names right now. Mike Shaw was another. And the third one was Roger Arthur. And there were the only 3 remaining, if I remember correctly. There was an additional candidate, Joel McGuigan, who did support Batten up to a degree. There are some ways in which he doesn't, but he is quite upfront about that. Ultimately, he says he supports Gerard Batten's vision for UKIP, and he would like to see... Previously, he said he would like to see Gerard Batten be allowed to stand. He thought he should have stood as leader, but I think I would agree at this point that time has passed, unfortunately. Richard Brain would be an amazing leader, but I think that time has passed as well, which is extremely frustrating and sad. Really sad. And following all this and around this time, Richard Brain resigned from the party. He resigned as leader. Actually, I don't know if he did leave the party, but he resigned as leader. And then the NEC election was concluded. And 7 of the 7 seats were won. Joel McGuigan won a seat. All 3 of the remaining Batten Brigade candidates won. And I think they got the most votes too. But the other members elected were also... Freddie Varcher was made an NEC candidate. Pat Mountain was made an NEC member. I said NEC candidate, NEC member. Pat Mountain was put forward, and I think Paul Williams, but I forget to be sure. I might be wrong about that. After this, it came to light that a court case had been brought against Richard Brain and Mark Dent by UKIP. By UKIP, the company. Now, this frankly was absolutely ridiculous. Everyone was quite annoyed by this, and the court case finished just recently, so we'll get to that in a moment. But frankly, this has just made everyone extremely angry. I think it was primarily brought to Brain and Mark Dent and two other defendants whose names I forget, by the chairman, Kirsten Harriott, and the previous General Secretary, Adam Richardson. In the following all of this court case stuff, it was quite quiet, the court case. We didn't hear anything for a while. But then Pat Mountain was made the interim leader and subsequently appeared on Sky News and did an absolutely horrible interview in which she did not perform to the same degree as Richard Brain fantastically did. And I feel sad for Pat Mountain. She seems alright, but, we need a strong leader. We genuinely do. And Pat Mountain is not a strong leader. Then we had Kirsten Harriott was sacked and has since sued the party for, what was it, constructive dismissal? I think the term is. But that aside, Ben Walker, NEC member, has been made chairman. Freddie Varcher, NEC member, has been made general secretary. Neil Hamilton, I don't believe is an NEC member, but he is an ex officio member, has been made party treasurer. And honestly, it angers me to see that most of the leadership, well, actually all the leadership positions are filled by NEC members. And in addition, we recently had Gerard Batten sent out an open letter. I'll leave a link in the description to it. An open letter to Pat Mountain, basically asking her to change the direction, change the direction we're going in, try and bring the party back. He says that if this doesn't happen, he will leave. He'll leave the party, and he'll likely have many members following him. And I think that is an accurate statement. We're currently looking at, I don't know the exact estimates, but I think we might be below 15,000 members now, which means the party is close to insolvency. But there's one final thing that's happened. I believe it's this week that it happened, that we found out, or maybe the end of last week. But the court case concluded. UKIP lost the court case. So thanks to UKIP deciding to sue the ex-leader and other members for apparent thievery and data breaches, UKIP has lost £29,000. And by UKIP, I mean the NEC members and former chairman and former general secretary. I believe he was the general secretary. So yeah, they've wasted £29,000. Well done. £12,000 of that has gone to Adam Richardson, who has billed the party for his services, even though they performed the Kirsten Harriott, Adam Richardson, and the other NEC members involved in the prosecution performed much like they do with the party in using their own version of the truth to mislead the case or just to present conjecture as fact. I've seen much of that performance from Neil Hamilton in his arguments against Richard Brain, in which he would try and state his own version of events. I've posted my own dismissals of it, and frankly, I'm surprised Neil Hamilton was ever a lawyer with how fallacious his arguments are. I would think that he would know not to do that. This has raised a question about my future in UKIP. Whether or not I'm staying. We've seen Count Dankula, he's left the party because he feels that the party doesn't represent free speech anymore. I'm inclined to agree. But frankly, I joined UKIP for a few reasons. Gerard Batten and Carl Benjamin were two of them. The manifesto was another, but the members of UKIP were a big reason as well. And while I've been a part of UKIP, I've met many, many amazing members. And I would say that as far as I'm concerned, for the time being, I'll stay in UKIP. I don't intend to leave. Main reason being, I have nowhere else to go. That's not a good reason to do whatever you want, though, NEC. I will gladly leave if I feel the party isn't going anywhere, and I'll just be politically homeless, to put it one way. But, currently the Tories are sweeping up many, many disillusioned members, and they will leave. Our members will leave, and we will actually die. UKIP will die if we do not reform. So, yeah, I think Gerard Batten is absolutely right. And I think that under his leadership, and probably Richard Brain's leadership, the party would thrive. And I do not think the NEC know the first thing about properly running a party, or at least properly responding to members. This has been evident by how horribly they've treated their members and disregarded their every instruction. I have lost respect for the NEC and the chairman with every piece of news I've heard about them. The only two honourable things I've ever seen the NEC and chairman do was the chairman, when Damien Hess was unsuspended, and when the party chairman decided to respect the subsequent win of Joel McGuigan to the YI chairmanship, which only took about, I think it was almost a month. I mean, that is understandable in the crisis that was going on, but it's still ridiculous. So anyway, I'm going to stay in UKIP. I will try to continue to help it make it a better party, though I doubt I'll have much success. I have many good friends and allies in UKIP still that I would trust to work with me to make it a better party. Frankly, I think if you want to know where we should be with UKIP, how we should be behaving, I think the NEC need to go take a look at section 2.5, or 2.5, I'm pretty sure that's how you say it, 2.5 of the party constitution, which states, the party is a democratic, libertarian party and will espouse policies which promote and encourage those who aspire to improve their personal situation and those who seek to be self-reliant, whilst providing protection for those genuinely in need. Favor the ability of individuals to make decisions in respect of themselves. Seek to diminish the role of the state. Lower the burden of taxation on individuals and businesses. Ensure proper control over the United Kingdom's borders. Strengthen and guarantee the essential traditional freedoms and liberties of all people in the United Kingdom. Given how the NEC and ex-chairman have behaved, I would not trust UKIP in government. I would not trust them to lead this country. But I believe that UKIP has the strongest foundation out of all the political parties in the United Kingdom. But that won't stop poisonous members and toxic infighting from burning the party down to its foundation. So I hope UKIP will make better of its situation. And I do plead members not to leave, though I understand if you do. That's it from this video. I know it's been a long one, but frankly, I'm a little concerned, but we'll see where that goes. Hopefully I'll release some more videos in the coming days. I cannot promise anything because I have been really busy with work and I only have more ahead of me. But if I don't upload another video, I hope you have a Merry Christmas.